have they drug tested this list of 500 potential suspects that brought an illegal substance, a drug, cocaine, into the White House? Their answer was no, and that they're unwilling to do so.
And if there were a small amount of marijuana or cocaine found somewhere in the Capitol complex, we would not want to drug test everybody who works here.
Mixed reaction from lawmakers after the Secret Service announced its investigation into who brought cocaine into the White House is over without naming a suspect. It is time now for our Sunday Group. Politico congressional reporter Olivia Beavers, Kevin Walling, a former 2020 Biden campaign surrogate, Washington Post columnist Mark Deason, and Mary Catherine Ham, columnist for Outkick. All right, welcome everybody. You've heard our conversation about what went down at the White House and the lack of any name or conclusion to, well, the conclusion has happened. I found this interesting. Bloomberg reporter Jason Leopold did a Freedom of Information Act request trying to get information from Secret Service. They sent him a letter saying this: "We regret to inform you that we cannot comply. The file is being exempted since disclosure could reasonably be expected to interfere with enforcement proceedings." But Mary Catherine, I don't know that there are going to be any enforcement proceedings. I'm not sure.
I'm going to use a phrase borrowed from my liberal colleagues from the Trump administration, which is, "This is not normal." This is not normal. And that phrase was used rightly, I think, sometimes to say you should be more appalled by this. And I think the Biden administration should be a bit more appalled by this. I think if they wanted to know, they would know who the perpetrator was here. I think it is a big deal, despite my libertarian streak, to have hard drugs inside the White House. I think in all likelihood it is a staff member or a family member that is to be protected.
Well, and Kevin, I mean, it just leaves speculation rampant if we don't get a name. Better for them if they actually got to someone.
Yeah, Shannon, certainly. I mean, and we've been talking about it nonstop for about 2 weeks or so. But, you know, Admiral Kirby said, you know, the Secret Service is the lead investigative agency on this. You know, there was just little evidence in terms of the physical evidence with that baggie. We've all been through that White House entrance. There are not cameras inside for security reasons. And maybe the Secret Service will readjust some of their security procedures. But I'm a Democrat. You know, as a surrogate for President Biden, this is certainly concerning, and certainly we have more questions than answers at this point. I think we'll likely move on as a country to bigger and more interesting and important issues, but certainly troubling.
Well, and we already talked about last week about how the president has made clear to his staff he doesn't want to hear anything that is about Hunter. He doesn't want Hunter to be dragged into anything. He also doesn't want to be told, don't have Hunter front and center at big events. He's family. This is the way things are going to be. Well, the Axios now follows up on that by talking about this with the headline Old Yeller, saying that the president is cranky and has privately a very bad temper. It says Biden has such a quick trigger temper that some aides try to avoid meeting alone with him. Quote, "No one is safe," said one administration official. My question mark is like, why are we now getting these reports from inside? Why are we now starting to get these negative leaks about the president?
Well, apparently Old Yeller isn't too upset about the coke in the White House. I think that there's a concern about the president's campaign. This is day 907 of the Biden presidency, and he is, according to the 538 average, the most unpopular president in the history of the country, going back to Harry Truman, except for Jimmy Carter at this point in his presidency. He's 7 in 10 people think that he's too old to do the job. And his successor, Kamala Harris, is less popular than he is. So this is a problem. If they weren't convinced that Donald Trump was churning on to the nomination, I think there'd be panic in the White House right now and in the Democratic Party.
Well, CNN's reporting on some of that, saying that there are people that are reaching out to other potential alternatives. They say conversations keep happening, quiet whispers on the sidelines of events, texts, emails, furtive phone calls. As top Democrats and donors reach out to those seen as possible replacement presidential candidates, because they feel like time is already running out and that the lack of the more robust campaign activity they want to see is a sign that his heart, meaning the president's, isn't really in it. Olivia.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that the underlying fear there, the Biden supporters are dismissing that Biden's not going to be running. But I think the underlying fear is that Biden's not putting all of his energy into this reelection campaign. That report talked about how they do not have key staff in early election states. And he hasn't been building out his infrastructure. He just got his first fundraising numbers since he basically launched his campaign, reelection campaign, and they are not as strong compared to Donald Trump when he did his and President Obama years back. So I think that this worry is them attempting to say, okay, we're going to be looking for alternatives if you do not get going, but you need to start going.
I mean, who are we talking about? Gavin Newsom? Governor Pritzker, Governor Whitmer.
We have two advanced aged men who are likely to be the nominees who are running on inevitability. And that is inherently, to borrow another phrase, a low energy way of running. And it does not inspire a bunch of confidence. I think Biden, some low energy problems just in general, it's a market failure. And that's why these sort of third party buzz is popping up. It's why this discussion of maybe an alternative to Biden is popping up, because people's desires are not being served here, and certainly not energetically.
They were happy, though, to tout their fundraising numbers. This is a bright spot for the campaign. $72 million raised in Q2. The Biden-Harris team, they say, dramatically outraised the announced totals from every GOP candidate running for president, including Donald Trump by more than 2-1 and Ron DeSantis by more than 3-1. So, Kevin, that gives you some smiles this morning.
Those are incredibly strong numbers. And one of the more interesting things, I think, coming out of that report is 30% of those donors are new since 2020 to the president's campaign. Nearly 400,000 Americans contributed over 600,000 times to this campaign in Q2. Those are great numbers from every single state in this country. And again, as you just said, 3-1 DeSantis, 2-1 Donald Trump. And to Olivia's point, that gives a lot of cash now to build out this campaign effort in Wilmington.
Mark seems a little skeptical.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's propping up, it's like Weekend at Bernie's. It's propping up a guy who's, is declining.
It was a great movie.
Wasn't there a number two?
I mean, there was a sequel,
money's important, but, look, if you just look at how much Joe Biden has declined in the last 18 months, when I worked in the Bush administration, you look at the pictures of Bush on the day he took office and the day he left office and how old he got, and the job really, wears you down. If you look at pictures of the day Joe Biden took the oath of office compared to today, it's like 8 years of pressure. How's it going to be in 18 months from now? I mean, he literally, we could get to election day and he could look so enfeebled that Americans are going to conclude he can't do the job.
Well, he says he's getting the job done when it comes to student loan debt forgiveness. After the Supreme Court struck down their $430 billion plan, they've come up with a new one. Wall Street Journal says this: Biden administration to wipe out $39 billion in student loans for 800,000 borrowers. So student loan borrowers on income-driven repayment plans who've made 20 or 25 years of payments will get their remaining balances wiped out in coming weeks. The Education Department said that inaccurate payment counts in the past resulted in borrowers losing progress toward loan forgiveness. Olivia, I keep trying to press for more details on exactly how this is going to work, but they say it's an administrative fix to the past. Just conveniently, though, benefits 800,000 people who might be voting next time.
Yes, and it comes after this, the Supreme Court ruled against their previous attempts. They're doing this under the Higher Education Act of 1965, and they're claiming, as you said, trying to fix some issues in the past and deficiencies, issues with the loan servicers that the administration worked with. But Republicans are out there saying, you're buying votes. This is your attempt to pay off people. And Democrats are saying, no, we're just keeping our promises. So we need to be looking at what more information the administration can provide in terms of why they are giving this. Were there actually issues? And I think that that's something we're going to be seeing unfold going forward.
I like that these adjustments are based on the Federal Department of Education saying, sorry, we can't count, so we're going to count again.
We're going to have to
Which is a bipartisan problem.
That might be some
but student loan borrowers are demanding a recount. But let me just really quickly. Congresswoman Lisa McClain, who is a Republican, went to the floor to blast this on Friday and says this in a tweet: Biden's unconstitutional loan forgiveness scheme is a slap in the face to hardworking taxpayers that have dutifully paid off their student loans. Rest assured, come hell or high water, I will fight this blatant overreach until the end. Mark, I'm assuming this thing ends up in court.
Absolutely, it does, and she's 100% right. But also, here's the thing: this is only $39 billion compared to the $500 billion to $1 trillion of the first plan. So it's peanuts financially, but it's being given to people who've paid off their loans from 20 to 25 years. So you're talking people who are 40, 45 years old. The reason they were doing this in the first place was to energize young voters, right? They're not going to get a penny out of this. This is for older voters. This is a giveaway to Gen X and older millennials when their problem is with Gen Z.
All right, let's not call people in their 40s older. Yikes.
Careful, Mark.
I'm Methuselah at this point. Okay. Thank you, panel.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.